A vote for Morrissey is a vote for me. A vote for Marcia is really a vote for me. And a vote for Cindy is a vote for me. And a vote for Steve is a vote for me. Remember this, a vote for David is a vote for me in our agenda to make America great again. I'm not on the ballot, but in a certain way, I'm on the ballot, so please go out and vote.
Well, you heard it from him. The 2018 midterm elections were all about the president. Talk of a blue wave was everywhere a few months ago because of Trump's polarizing nature. Democrats were hopeful to retake the House and the Senate despite a historically tough year for them, and Republicans wanted to keep their majority. The campaign was everywhere, and it felt all-important and all-encompassing. After one of the most consequential midterm elections of this generation, people wanted answers. Who won? Who lost? And of course, the loudest voice in all of this was the president. Trump tied the elections to him, so of course he needed things to go well. And in a way it did. Take a look at the Senate map. 2 pickups for the Republican Party, that's a pretty big win in the Senate. But in the House, a major loss for the GOP. How could they win one and lose the other? What do the people want? Well, there's a few reasons, so let's go over them. We saw increased rural support for the president, but we also saw urban and suburban areas becoming more liberal, 2 things that caused differences from the House and the Senate. We'll look at those and then some statewide factors like gerrymandering and voter suppression. First, let's look at the urban-rural divide. There's no better place to look for that than Missouri, a key Senate race where a Democrat lost her seat by over 10 points. That's Claire McCaskill in 2012, pretty evenly spread out, a lot of blue, a lot of red. Now take a look at 2018, that's a whole sea of red. Kansas City, St. Louis, and Jefferson City, and that's it. She only got the cities, and she won them by a lot, but her opponent took everywhere else. That red is all rural areas, and they all have the same high support for Trump. McCaskill could have won, but rural areas picked her opponent in a landslide. Missouri isn't alone. North Dakota, Tennessee, Indiana, all where Republicans in rural areas drowned out the more liberal cities in a sea of red. That's not good for Senate Democrats. Most people live in urban and suburban areas, but in a lot of those states, the rural population outweighs the urban. Statewide, Democrats can't win without them. But it's the opposite in the House. There were a lot of blue state Republicans that went down on election night. Look at New Jersey. They went from 5 seats to just 1. Democrats went after the suburbs where white-collar Republicans weren't big fans of the president. Suburban areas went very blue, and Republicans couldn't hold on to a lot of those white-collar voters. And that's a trend nationwide. J.E. Campbell's forecasting model found nearly 50 suburban seats Democrats could target, and they won about 31 of them. For a visual, let's take a look at the Cook Political Report. Look at how many seats from New Jersey, New York, California, Pennsylvania. They won their seats in places Trump wasn't popular, and there's a lot of people in those areas which affects the House and not the Senate. So that's the national setting. But state by state, there were individual problems that affected the race. Look at Pennsylvania, where a Supreme Court case made them redraw their maps before this election. The court said the Republicans were unfairly favored by gerrymandering. The Erickson model shows that the gerrymandering problem was fixed as the 2 maps are very different. In 2018, it showed. Dems won a lot of extra seats that they probably wouldn't have if the old map had stayed. Gerrymandering is a big problem for both parties in a lot of states, and in Pennsylvania, it made a huge difference. But look at North Carolina, where the court said they'll have to change their legal map by 2020, but they couldn't do it in time for 2018. Trump's popularity is about even in the swing state, but look at their map. Only 3 competitive districts in the state, and they all stayed the same. 2020 won't look the same because districts will become more competitive. Finally, let's look at voter purging. In a few states, voters were suppressed by strict laws made to prevent voter fraud. Adriano points out that a lot of that is over immigration fears, something that was apparent in Georgia. Secretary of State and new governor, Brian Kemp, played into the fears of both and purged anywhere from 350,000 to 1 million voters, many of them minorities. In an election that was decided by 50,000 votes, that could have made a huge difference. It may have also made a difference in some of the districts, especially in one that was decided by just 400 votes. Other states like North Dakota are experiencing these issues too right now, and in 2020 all of this will become apparent once again. Looking back on all of this, there really isn't much of a narrative, because the narrative is what you make of it. The difference between a blue wave and a red wave, it depends on who you ask. But what we do know is that rural areas are getting more red, and urban areas are getting more blue. These are 2 different Americas, and they're separating. Every day, right now, they are separating. Polarization. That's the real winner in this election.